Tails, the fellow who doesn't really need an introduction, but he's getting one anyway because he's my son, damn it! He's that cool little amber dude who, despite his warm color scheme, somehow keeps a cool head even in the tensest of situations. Well, most of the time. But there's always been that one thing that's bugged me, the topic of his flight. Everyone's throwing their theories around, from fans to full-on MatPat style breakdowns, and yet Sega's left the question completely unanswered. Why? Well, probably because it isn't really that big of a deal. He's just a little guy who can fly around. But that's not enough to satisfy our phenomenal cosmic hunger with only an itty-bitty bit of exposition. Welcome to Tails Nexus, the only place where this guy, that's me, can pretend he's never been absent for several weeks and then act completely shocked when people finally call him out on it. Now, despite my silent little spell, I've been quietly brewing away on my cauldron of esoteric Tails lore, and now that it's finally done cooking, it's time for me to cook. And today's recipe? Tails and his flight. How does it work? Why does it work? And most importantly, what do I think? Narcissist much? Tails' flight has always been one of those things we all just accept. Like, yeah, sure, he spins his tails and flies, and that makes sense. But if you stop and really think about it, it gets weird. Really weird. Sega's never explained it, the fans have made a million theories to fill the gap, and somewhere between he's just built different and Chaos Energy did it, there might actually be an answer, or at least a fun conversation. So today, we're diving into the weird, wonderful, and possibly overthought world of how Tails actually flies. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, Sonic Origins. Now, this game takes Tails' flight and boils it down to the classic Todd Howard approach.
It just works.
Basically, Tails wants to catch up to Sonic. That sheer determination pushes him to spin his tails faster and faster until boom, flight. And honestly, it catches even him by surprise. It's a cute, simple story, one that actually fits surprisingly well with what we already know about Sonic lore. Well, mostly, but that's a topic for a little later in the video. What's cool here is how the story lines up almost perfectly with what we saw in Sonic 2 manuals, both the Japanese and the American versions. So Origins isn't just pulling this out of nowhere, it's clearly aware of its roots. And honestly, that's kind of the point, isn't it? A game called Sonic Origins going back to, well, its origins. It's a nice little nostalgic nod, even if it's the 50th trip down memory lane we've had by now. Now, as cute as this is, something feels missing. I get it, in a world that's basically the embodiment of with the power of teamwork anything is possible, you kinda have to suspend your disbelief at some point. I mean, we're talking about hedgehogs running faster than most vehicles, logic packed its bag and left over 30 years ago. But with this, it's not really about suspension of disbelief, it's about the anticipation of details. It's like having a puzzle where the box art shows you the full picture, but half the pieces are just gone. There's no real teamwork element in Tails simply being determined, but on the other hand, that belief in himself is core to his character. The closest thing you get to teamwork is Sonic giving Tails that little wink. You could interpret that as encouragement, but then you go back to the Sonic 2 manual and realize that wink wasn't a let's see if you can keep up, it was more of a wanna see something really cool. It was Sonic wanting to show off in the American manual, and it was Sonic wanting to be on his own in the Japanese manual. Also, a little side note, while I was revisiting these manuals again, I stumbled across a really cool bit of Tails lore. His favorite vehicle model is the Lotus Super 7, which looks like this. Now, if that design seems oddly familiar, that's because it is. It's basically the inspiration behind almost every single car Tails has ever raced in, from the Tornado Racer to his Sonic Drift rides. All of it ties back to this one model. Of course, we can exclude Riders from that list because, well, it's not a car he's driving, it's a hoverboard. Ah, this little gem of a game. Remember how like 2 minutes ago I was talking about how Sonic Origins was almost a perfect fit for everything we know about the Sonic timeline? Well, yeah, this beautiful little game throws a big ol' stone right through that glass house and shatters everything. See, everyone generally agrees that Tails' adventure takes place before Sonic 2, meaning before Tails had even met Sonic. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense, both in-world and narratively. To put it simply, there are only 6 Chaos Emeralds in this game. Sound familiar? That's the same as the first Sonic game. No 7th Emerald yet. Why? Because that 7th one is on West Island, a place that clearly hasn't been visited at this point. In every other game, there are 7 emeralds because, well, every time all of them are gathered together, they scatter again, across time and space, which, when you think about it, is already terrifying. But with only 6 emeralds, they haven't been able to properly scatter yet. Sure, they might get warped or displaced on some cosmic level, but not quite scattered. Regardless, this game is also described as Tails' place of residence, and the Japanese version of Tails' Adventure outright confirms it takes place before Sonic 2. So why is it so important that we double, triple, quadruple check that Tails' adventure happens before Sonic 2? Well, the answer is simple. Tails can already fly, and that causes some issues with Sonic Origins, because if Origins is supposed to show the moment Tails learns to fly, then this game kinda breaks that. Now, the American manual tries to patch us up by stating the obvious. Tails and Sonic have already met, and now they've temporarily parted ways so Tails can take a vacation. But that raises some questions. Why does an 8-year-old need a vacation from what we can assume is like a week of adventure? Wasn't this the same kid who was determined to be like Sonic, and now suddenly he wants to take a break? You could argue he's trying to copy Sonic's laid-back attitude by taking it easy wherever he can, but that kind of betrays his character, doesn't it? Relaxing and going on vacation just doesn't seem very Tails-esque. So which one's right here? The American version or the Japanese version? Well, that's quite the question, isn't it? Because technically, both are right, depending on what lens you're looking through. See, the Japanese version focuses on Tails' personal growth, the idea that this is his story, his own little adventure before meeting Sonic. Meanwhile, the American version tries to keep things consistent with the existing games, which honestly makes sense. You don't want to confuse kids by saying, hey, this game happens before Sonic 2, but also after Sonic 1. So, in a way, neither side is wrong. They just have different priorities. The Japanese story builds character, while the American one maintains continuity. Well, it tries to anyway. With Sonic Origins, if we take zero consideration of the Japanese version of the story, it flows. Yeah, it flows, like how molasses flows through a rocky riverbed. Not very well, but you can see it if you squint really hard. My biggest deal breaker with accepting the American version as true is actually just the Chaos Emeralds. Why are there 6? This is a game made in 1995. You already have established that yes, there are 7 emeralds now. Take a look at Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
No, you cannot change rules!
You can't take it back now. You can't just say, well, there's now 6 in this game, unless you are willing to accept that this game is a prequel to Sonic 2, and thus the 7th emerald hasn't been discovered yet. Sonic 2 happening after Tails' adventure also makes sense narratively because Tails informs Sonic of the emeralds on the island. Tails already has knowledge of them, which would make you question how would he have this knowledge if Tails' adventure wasn't a prequel? So, with all of this in mind, I'll be safely deleting the American variant of Sonic lore from my brain. Well, parts of it anyway. For a game called Sonic Origins, not to clown on it or anything, they really did kind of forget about Tails' origin here. Or at least they didn't think it all through too much. Granted, it's Sonic Origins, not Tails Origins, but come on, he's such a huge part of Sonic 2, the game literally wouldn't feel the same without a little fuzzball. And now for the fun part, my very own self-proposed theory, one that I believe neatly ties up the disconnect between Sonic Origins and Tails' adventure. It's more lore-friendly, and let's be real, it gives Tails the spotlight he deserves, because honestly, I can't gas this little guy up enough. This theory also steers clear of the old, oh yes, but you see it takes place in a different timeline cop-out. That story beat is so overused, it's basically the Haru Urara of explanations. Cute and charming at first, but now it's bland, expected, and we're just craving a different flavor, man. Without further ado, my Tails is Chaos-blessed theory. Let's rewind to how Tails first learned how to fly. In Tails' adventure, he can only fly for short bursts, can't maintain it for long. Whereas in later games, he can stay airborne for much longer, sometimes seemingly perpetually, which begs the question, why the difference? Is it because Tails is inexperienced? Or maybe his confidence is low, limiting his ability? Well, I think the answer is obvious. Chaos Emeralds. Tails' adventure outright confirms it. More Chaos Emeralds equals longer flight and greater durability. Just like Sonic is affected by the emeralds, Tails is too. But instead of getting a yellow sheen and Dragon Ball style powers, Tails gets more flight and more durability. He only goes super with the Super Emeralds, which needs the Master Emerald. Here's where it gets interesting. I think it's not just Tails' body that's being affected, it's his tails specifically. The evidence? Have you seen what this kid does with his tails? He's literally folding Badniks in half, and in the Archie comics he folds Metal Sonic with them. Metal Sonic! Okay, fine, non-canon, but still, his tails are strong enough to not only lift himself, but Sonic and Knuckles too. We already know Chaos Emeralds affect things. Chaos is literally power enriched by the heart, and honestly, how could Tails not be affected? The kid is the embodiment of heart, so naturally he should be susceptible to the power of the emeralds. Now, here's the fun part. What if the Chaos Emeralds leave a lingering sense of Chaos energy in Tails? His overexposure could have granted him the ability to manipulate Chaos energy, not on the level of Sonic Shadow, but enough to make an impact. I believe Tails can use a weaker version of Chaos Control, which explains a lot. It allows his tails to accelerate independently and even phase through each other so they don't get tangled. This means he uses less effort to fly and can stay airborne longer. With this, Tails is essentially learning how Chaos Energy works. Heck, he even built a Chaos Energy reactor in the same game. I'm willing to bet he took inspiration from his own tails to make the turbine, which makes sense, right? Chaos Energy flowing through a turbine-like device, which just so happens to be his two tails? Yeah, it's science, totally. However, after the events of Tails' adventure, naturally his heart would slowly deteriorate to lead him to no longer believing in himself properly. No matter how epic his grand adventure was, doubt would always creep back up. He'd fall into the same habits, being bullied again and becoming the laughing stock. Enter Sonic the Hedgehog, the speedy hedgehog that is as cool as a cucumber. A blue cucumber. A blue cucumber. Ugh, that sounded better in my head. Kid gets inspired by his ability to be fast and awesome all at the same time, so he follows him around because he had nothing better to do. Sonic gives him a slight bit of acknowledgement, which is more than enough for Tails to want to keep following. That little bit of acknowledgement, it's enough for Tails to try to fly without aid from the Emeralds. He's able to, and he's also able to do it for far longer than he did prior. This makes total sense because it respects how Origins explains Tails, it respects Tails' adventure as a game, and respects Tails as a character. Everything tied into a neat little Sonic theory made by a crazed Tails schizo freak. And that's all she wrote. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you agree that it's entirely plausible Tails' flight has a deeper meaning, and I've cracked the code? Or do you think it's just a case of it ain't that deep, Nexus? I'm genuinely curious to hear what you think. I had a lot of fun researching this topic and diving into different game sources, and I'll still stand on the hill that the American version of Sonic lore is a little less than perfect, but then again, what is perfect anyway? If you're new here, why don't subscribe for more content like this? And if you enjoy videos like this, hitting that like button helps me know that this is the kind of stuff you want to see more of. And until next time, keep flying high.